My name is Todd Roper. I live in Riverside, California with my wife Kim and my two teenage daughters, Michaela and Christabel. And I have 3 stents, 2 ciphers and a Zeta stent. And I also have a Guidant defibrillator.
We're a very close family. Always have been. Todd and I have always been very close. We've homeschooled 13 years.
Our family does a lot of various stuff, but it's practically 98% of the time we always do it together.
We're very involved in church, and the girls do various other activities. They're both involved in theater.
Currently I'm in a play, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, and my parents are very supportive of it. They come to at least one performance of every performance that we have.
Watching my girls always amazes me, how bold they are and being able to act and sing in front of large crowds. A little over 20 years now I've been an auditor for a workers' comp insurance company. I leave the house and go to various businesses around here in Southern California. So I'm on the road a lot. My diet has completely changed. I have a kind of a regimen, a routine that I go through each day. Since my heart attack, I've really focused on the fat aspect. A lot of planning goes into that. You know, we go to the grocery store. The family doesn't even like me to go with them anymore because it takes so long. I'm reading all the labels to everything, trying to figure out what's in there.
When we met at church, he was on the football team. He had wrestled when he was in high school. He was a city champion, wrestled some when he went to Pierce College.
My exercise routine now has been reduced to just going for walks. That's about all I can do. Usually 1 or 2 members of my family will accompany me, and it gives us a chance to just catch up on the day, and it's a real great time to spend where we're just walking and getting the benefit of exercise, but also getting time to just share life together. Yeah, a couple of years ago I went out to mow the lawn in the evening one warm summer night. Kim and the girls had left to go shopping that evening, and I started to feel some chest pain all throughout my chest, and it was something that kind of confused me because I've had those kinds of pains ever since 7th grade, but I never said anything to anybody about it. I just thought it was because I lived in a smoggy area and I, was out of shape a little bit. So I sat down to relax and rest and catch my breath, and then I got back up to continue mowing the lawn, and it just got worse.
Well, after we got home from shopping, our neighbors came up and they were talking to my mom, and they said that my dad had been taken to the emergency room.
So girls and I hopped into the car. They tell me I was doing well over the speed limit.
My mom was going about 90 miles an hour down the road, and I could see my sister was she was very scared. She was holding on to the door, and I was holding on to the door as well.
We walked into the emergency room and heard this moaning throughout the entire emergency room that as if somebody was dying. And
I was just laying on the gurney staring up at the lights, and everything got kind of fuzzy, and I started feeling drowsy, and then next thing I knew, just like that, I couldn't open my left eye. And I asked, my eye, what's wrong with my eye? And there was a fellow standing there, and he said, well, you just had a seizure.
We got over to the cardiac door, and I recognized Todd's voice, not his voice, but the sound that was a moan coming from Todd. And he said, we got to the door, and he said, your husband has had a massive heart attack. We've had to use the paddles on him because he died, but we were able to bring him back with the paddles.
And he had also had a seizure, and that it had caused his nose to bleed. The seizure had caused his nose to bleed, so there was a lot of blood on him and the bed.
He had blood all over his face, and it scared us a lot. It scared me a lot. And they had 2 seats on the side of the bed, so me and my sister sat in the seats.
And then next thing I knew, they said, Mr. Roper, your family's here. And so I turned to my left, and there was my then 12-year-old daughter, Christabel, and she was crying. And I said to her, trust Jesus. And then I turned to my right, and there was Michaela, my 14-year-old at the time. And she was crying, and I told her, trust Jesus. And then they started to wheel me into the cath lab, and my wife was holding my hand, and we told each other we loved each other.
The cardiologist said he's very, very unstable, very critical condition. We'll do what we can. And at that point, we didn't know if he was going to survive. They didn't know the extent of his heart attack other than it was massive. He had, we found out later after they got him done at the cath lab that the two main arteries were 100% occluded.
I was in the cath lab for several hours, and I arrived at ICU at about 2 in the morning, where they had placed 2 stents in my heart, and finally the pain was gone. I could feel that there was very little pain left at all, and I could finally breathe normally again.
I went in to see my dad, and he was laying there, and he had dark eyes like you saw in the pictures, like red eyes, and very scary looking. And I remember sitting in the chair and holding his hand, and I said, "I'm going home now, Dad." So he was looking at me. By that time he was aware of everything, and he said, "Okay, I'll see you later, probably tomorrow." And I said, "Yeah." So I got up and I gave him a hug, and when I gave him, that was the first hug I had had since he had his heart attack. And I started crying again at that moment because it was very special to me to be in my dad's arms again, know that he was safe.